New York City, 1964. It was just an ordinary evening. A young woman was heading home after her night shift. She parked her car, stepped out, and started walking toward her apartment, but she never made it to the door. Her name was Kitty Genovese. That night, Kitty was attacked by a man right there on the sidewalk. She screamed for help. Lights turned on in nearby windows. Some people heard her, some people saw, but no one called the police. No one ran down to help. Kitty was stabbed and the attacker ran off, but he wasn't done. He came back a second time and kept going. This time, no lights came on, and Kitty didn't survive. 38 people. That was the number reported in the papers. 38 people heard, saw, but no one stepped in. Why? Was it fear, indifference, or was there something deeper going on in the human mind? Today, we're going to explore the bystander effect and why crowd psychology can make people stay silent even when someone's life is on the line. The story begins around 3 a.m., March 13th, 1964. Kitty Genovese had just finished her shift as a manager at a small bar in Queens, New York. She drove home, parked about 100 feet from her apartment, got out of the car, and started walking alone down the dark street. As Kitty got closer to the entrance of her building, Winston Moseley, a stranger, approached her. He stabbed her with a knife, and Kitty screamed out, "Oh my God, he stabbed me! Please, someone help." A few windows lit up. One man yelled down, "Hey, leave her alone." Moseley looked up, then ran off. Kitty tried to crawl toward the building's door, hoping someone would let her in. But no one came down. The door stayed locked. About 10 minutes later, when no one seemed to be watching, Moseley came back. He found Kitty collapsed near the back hallway of the building. This time, there were no screams, no lights turning on, and he ended her life. It wasn't until 3:50 a.m. that a neighbor finally called the police. By the time they arrived, Kitty was still barely breathing, but it was too late. The next day, news spread quickly across New York. A headline on the New York Times read, "37 who saw murder didn't call the police." The whole city was shocked. All of America was left asking, what happened? Why didn't anyone help her? So, what really happened that night? Why did 37 people, or 38, depending on which report you read, hear it, maybe even see it, yet no one acted right away? A lot of people at the time thought, someone's probably already called the cops, or maybe it's not that serious. Some were afraid of getting involved, scared they'd get in trouble if they stepped in, and so they all stayed still. This phenomenon later became known to psychologists as the bystander effect. Simply put, the more people there are witnessing an emergency, the less responsibility each person feels to act, because they assume someone else will do something. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It's just part instinct, part herd mentality, part fear and confusion. And the result? Nobody does anything. After Kitty Genovese's case, psychologists John Darley and Bib Latané ran a series of experiments. They found that the more people are present, the less likely any one person is to help. But if it's just you and the victim, you're way more likely to step in. Here's a simple example. Imagine you're walking down the street and you see someone fall. If it's just you, odds are you'll rush over right away. But if there's a whole crowd of people around, you might hesitate, thinking, I'm sure somebody else already helped. But Kitty Genovese's story wasn't just about a crime. It revealed something deeper and more unsettling about human nature. When many people witness an emergency, we don't just feel less personal responsibility, we also look around to see how others are reacting. And if nobody's doing anything, we don't do anything either. This is called pluralistic ignorance, a psychological phenomenon where everyone's unsure about what's happening, but because nobody else seems alarmed, you think it must be fine. In Kitty's case, when the lights in the windows flicked on and then off, when no one shouted or rushed down to help, the others followed that silence, a kind of everyone thinking what everyone else is thinking. And that's terrifying, because it shows how one person's silence can ripple into the silence of an entire group. And that silence can be deadly. Some researchers also point to another factor: fear of getting involved. In 1960s New York, crime and violence weren't uncommon. Maybe the people watching were afraid that if they intervened or testified, they'd be putting themselves in danger later. And so in that moment, as the lights flickered on and off, as her cries for help echoed, Kitty was left fighting for her life alone in a city full of people. Hearing Kitty's story, maybe you've asked yourself, if it were me, would I have stepped in? It's hard to say. In a sudden moment in a crowd, it's only natural to hesitate, to look around, to wait for someone else to act. But we can learn to overcome the bystander effect. One of the simplest ways is to remind yourself, I'm the one responsible. If you see someone in trouble, tell yourself, no one else is going to do it, I have to. Interestingly, research shows that the moment one person takes action, others will follow. Your action could be the spark that breaks the silence of the crowd. Here's another tip. If you need help, be specific. Instead of yelling, somebody help me, point to someone and say, you in the blue shirt, please call the police. When people are directly asked, they feel more responsible and they're less likely to ignore it. Sometimes it takes just one person to break the silence, to change everything. And maybe the biggest lesson from Kitty Genovese's story is this: be the first. Be the first to speak up. But what about you? If one day you saw someone needing help in a crowd, would you stand by, or would you be the first to step forward? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you think.